Hey guys, the Explorer 4 here, Horrorboy465. Welcome back to some more reviews, and welcome to a fan commentary on the Texas Massacre. And today I'll be joined by
RedBand Cast, yeah, that's Steve back at you one more time. I guess this is the first appearance that I'll be making in 2017 on YouTube. It's beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful thing, uh, and I'm definitely excited to do this with you, Nate. Um, Make sure to mind your volumes because this is a loud movie.
yeah. I'm actually gonna turn it down to about 10, which is kind of where you can hear it. I don't know. I'll go along if the movie's a little bit louder than that. I'll definitely readjust the volume. Because I know it's
Yeah,
like they can copyright you for audio. It's bull crap. It's the YouTube crap, guys. That the whole audio. Oh, it belongs to the movie. It shouldn't be in the video. Oh yeah, well it's a commentary. What do you expect?
which is kind of ironic because I the first time that I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre was actually on YouTube. So
I know. I seen it on YouTube for the very first time. I believe I had seen the on YouTube, and I had seen the movie. And what was really cool about it was the YouTube version I seen was kind of a low quality, so it kind of added to that grittiness. And I was like, wait a minute, what did I just see? I don't, it was sort of like that. I heard if you purchase VHS tapes of the Texas Massacre and you watch it on like stuff like VHS and stuff, I heard it's really creepy. It really adds to the creep because it's grainy
yeah,
and the VHS quality sort of adds a little bit of grittiness to it. But
yeah.
yeah, guys, we're going to be talking about the Texas Massacre. We're doing a fan commentary on it. What I love about these things is that it's very interactive with you guys. So if you guys want to follow along with us, you guys can pop in the old Texas Massacre DVDs or Blu-rays you guys got and follow us along in the movie. We'll be starting whenever you want to, Steve.
All right, whenever you guys are ready. I've got mine at a 0.00. I think Nate has his there too. So,
Yep.
what do you think? Countdown from 3?
Sure.
All right, I'll go ahead and do the countdown. 3, 2, 1, and then play. That'll be what we do. All right, 3,
Okay.
2, 1. Press play.
All right.
A
Got the
Vortex
classic.
Hinkle Cooper production.
My boy Toby Hooper.
Yeah,
This is a
I
classic
remember
opening
somebody.
right here.
Oh yeah, I've got mine on subtitles, and my TV is muted. I think I've watched because I've watched a bunch of commentaries on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My favorite one is actually the fan commentary from the Sausage Factory, and they do a really good one of it. And I've probably watched this movie more um, muted with subtitles and with commentaries as opposed to actually watching it. But yeah, I love this movie, and I know this is your favorite horror movie ever, right, Nate?
Oh yeah, if you guys hear a little bit of noise in the background, my dog in here, so he's been making some noise. So apologize for that, but he's in here right now chilling with me. But yeah, this is my favorite horror film, mainly for many reasons. I mean, this is just a classic, historic horror film. This is a horror film that, when it came out, made such an impact to the point where, and now we're getting into the classic, creepy photo scenes. This is a great sound effect they play here, which I think, isn't it the sound that cameras make, but it's recorded to the point where you can actually hear the details of what the camera's flash does. It makes that, I think it's the camera, that noise, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's something like that. But I also think that I don't know what sound effect it is, but I know there's some sound effect in this movie that's like a tuning fork being like scraped against a guitar string or something like that.
Yeah.
I
A
don't
lot
know
of use
what.
of different instruments in this movie to make different sound effects.
Yeah, I don't know. And Toby Cooper. I guess I'm thinking of Alice Cooper. But
It's his
um
brother. Nope.
sister. No. But anyway. Oh man. So I believe Nate is also watching the Blu-ray on this movie. Um And come on, Nate. I mean, this is probably like the best this movie is ever going to look. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, for the quality that it was shot back in the day, I really don't think you're going to get any more better than this kind of quality. I mean, it's really clear. And this is a very, very creepy shot. I remember when I first seen this movie, I was impressed because the beginning of the movie really gets you kicked into such an intense feel because you're seeing these quick flashes. You're not getting really good looks at it. So that's another thing where the quality thing plays in, where you're seeing this flash and you're not really sure what you've seen. Give me a second, real quick, guys. I'm actually gonna let my dog in my room because he makes like a lot of noise, so I'll be right back.
All right. I think I'll talk while he's away, but we've got here this awesome like panning out shot of this corpse. Now we're getting into the sunspots thing, but I love that shot because it starts out the movie on a very uncomfortable, confusing, just surreal kind of way. And I don't know, this movie is just entirely from the beginning to end, it's visceral. No matter how little there is of blood and gore or whatever, there's always this visceral and just surreal quality to this movie. You've got these sunspots and stuff, and you've got this overarching sort of theme that, this is just a bad day, is all this is. It's a bad day, the worst possible day you could possibly have. It's a
I'm back,
cosmically
guys.
bad day. I don't know. It's a really. I think this movie goes deeper than you would immediately think of when you watch it for the first time. Because really, when you watch it for the first time, it's like, oh my gosh, this is just the most brutal slasher movie I've ever seen in my life. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's almost like modern art in a way.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there's a print of this that is immortalized in the Museum of Modern Art. So
When I first seen this movie, I think what really drives that art piece to it is the environment. This is really one of those very few films from especially horror films from the 70s, that really captures the atmosphere of Texas. I mean, you get the bright blue skies, the sun. It's almost as if you can feel the heat when you watch the movie. You can feel it. You can feel just the atmosphere. The dryness, the heat of the Texas day, of the Texas summer. It was just, I think with this movie, what it really nails is atmosphere. I mean, it nails a lot of things as well. You got this great scene right here where,
my gosh,
you got Franklin pulling off the side road, taking a little pee.
Franklin and his coffee cup and his little pecker.
And I think what really is impressive about this Blu-ray is, I remember when I seen the 2-disc Ultimate Edition. Now that's a great edition. I love that edition. I don't have it anymore because I kind of lost it, and it's a bad thing because I lost it, and I really, really love that edition. Mm-hmm. But what really impressed me about this version of the movie is that when I watched DVD, there's a lot of weird cuts, weird zoom-ins and stuff that didn't really match the movie. And what really surprised me about the Blu-rays, I think it's fixed, because there was an awkward cut. I remember when Franklin looks over or something, it has like a very awkward cut. I'm like, oh, maybe it was the film, And so yeah, the Blu-ray did a great job cleaning up some stuff.
Yeah.
Looks great. Looks really great.
Oh, by the way, that scene that we just saw, I mean, it's just hilarious because, like, he throws his pee can up in the air, and it must just, like, pee raining down upon everybody who's in that little area.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Franklin's the best. I love Franklin. He's hilarious. And here we've got this, like, little... It seems almost like a throwaway discussion the first time you watch the movie. And then you watch it back, and this discussion is so important to the movie. the discussion about Saturn being in retrograde and the fact that this is just, as far as cosmic things are concerned, this is a bad day. This is not going to be something that's anybody's going to enjoy. And all of these things, all these stars just align so that this is the worst day that could possibly happen to these poor young kids. This movie goes a little bit deeper, I think, than most people would think when they watch it first time around.
Yes, absolutely. Gideon's actually joined us. What's up, Gideon? I think your mic's not working, dude.
Poor Gideon.
Hey, can you hear us, man?
I think he's frozen.
Hey, your mic isn't working, man. We can't hear you. Okay, he's gonna rejoin. But I think also what really got me about this movie, and the reason it's my favorite horror film, is that it was so crazy, is that this movie had such a small budget to it. And
sorry about that. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's fixed. We can hear you now, man.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys.
No problem.
No, that's totally fine.
No problem.
I was just doing a real sick on Instagram.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. We're watching the Texas Massacre, man. If you want to pop it in, you can watch it with us.
I'll just sit here and talk with you guys.
All right. I think like Steve said, you might have most of this stuff memorized.
I do.
Yeah. Sort of go through it in your brain, like play the film in your brain, man. You can play the movie in your head, and it just plays out, and you know it.
Yeah, man. How you doing, Steve?
Right now we're seeing I'm doing good. Right now we're seeing those disgusting shots of the cattle, and now Franklin's about to do the boom, boom, boom.
I thought he was such a crazy character in this movie, but Paul Partain did such a great job with this character. Sort of like a character that is very obnoxious, but at the same time very likable. You know, just one of those innocent people, just very innocent, very obnoxious, but you know, at the same time, he's a key character in the movie. He's Franklin from the Texas Massacre.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
You guys do.
Yep. There's Sally, and that's Kurt. Yeah, guys, I've seen the movie so many times. I know the names of the victims.
Yeah. You know that's bad.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't mean to like.
I binged it, like I watched it like 7 times in a row. I thought it was such a great movie.
Yeah.
Love this show.
I don't mean to promote anything here, but you know, Fright Rags.
Yeah.
Next month they're having Texas Chainsaw Collection.
Cool.
That's awesome. I'm definitely gonna pick up some of that. I want to pick up a Halloween shirt, and I want to pick up a zombie T-shirt with a zombie logo. Be great. Now this is a great performance right here. Ed Neal, great job here.
Hitchhiker.
If you watch this man, phenomenal job playing the hitchhiker.
It's like Gorbachev's baby half brother.
Yeah.
With his
and from what I remember, I think it was they found him because he was, I believe, doing acting classes and stuff, and he did a lot of voices. And I think that's what he does now, a lot of voice work. And he's actually said that he was serving in Vietnam, and this movie was more grueling than his experience in Vietnam. So that just says something about the way this movie was made. I mean, it just was a rough and tough film, tough production.
The crazy thing about this is like the entire movie was sort of like almost a protest against Vietnam, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's bringing Vietnam to America. This is I don't know. This movie's just, it's brutal in a way that we hadn't seen before, and the only time we would have seen it would have been those television broadcasts that they took from Vietnam. I don't know. Yeah. It's one of those it's one of those movies that's of its time because it feels timely, you know, if you put yourself in the context of when it was made.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ed Neal, by the way, I've never met the guy, but I hear he's like legit crazy. If you meet him in person, he's a crazy guy.
I've seen the interviews. He seems like he did his voices actually during the interview. It's pretty funny. I was like, huh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I guess in this scene right here, it's also very classic where you have it's very classic where you're seeing the build up of this new character, the hitchhiker. Actually, Gideon had to go, guys. He had to get to sleep. So thanks, Gideon, for popping up a little bit. Wait, cameo by Gideon Morbid, guys. Cameo.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here, man.
He's the Alfred Hitchcock of live casts.
Yeah.
He'll come in, make an appearance, leave. Oh my gosh.
But I'll leave a link to RedBand Cast and Gideon Morbid's channels. They're both really good friends of mine. And definitely go subscribe and check out their channels, guys. If you guys are big horror fans, they make some really good content. And they're really cool people. So definitely go check out their channels. I'll leave a link to RedBand and Gideon Morbid.
Appreciate it.
I'll also leave a link. Also, I might edit it after the video's done, but I'll leave a link to if you guys want to see our commentary on Chainsaw 2. We did it a while back on Steve's channel, and I'll leave a link to that. And also, you know, guys can subscribe to the video as well. But yeah, I'll leave a link to the Chainsaw 2 if you guys want to see our thoughts on Chainsaw 2. We did a commentary on Chainsaw 2 on his channel.
Yeah. Technical difficulties and all.
Yeah, I've had 2 parts to that commentary, so you guys might have to pause the movie for a second, but once you get the other video rolling, it should be good.
Yep. Oh, man. This scene is like, it's strange because it's so disturbing at one point and then becomes hilarious at another point, and then it goes right back to disturbing like soon after. I think it's actually apparent that Tobe Hooper was trying to make a comedy when he made Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and like a few times just sort of the comedy really shined through all the darkness. And I think this is one of those scenes where like it's such a combination of the two, and they don't necessarily, they mix like oil and water. It doesn't really mix together, but I mean they definitely stand out. But somehow it kind of works. I don't know. This is one of those movies that just sort of hangs together barely by a thread, I think. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I would say this is still probably like my 6th favorite horror movie ever, and at least it's in my top 10 movies of the 70s, definitely. And I'd probably say it's in the top 10, you know, since the 1970s, probably one of the most influential movies ever made, not just horror, but just movies in general. And this is, I don't know, it's got that quality to it that it just sort of hangs together all by a thread and just works despite itself. So I don't know. It's a crazy weird movie.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's at the time when I first seen it. When I first seen the movie, it was definitely probably the most psychologically disturbing movie I'd seen. Of course, since then I've seen stuff like Last House, and I have seen Cannibal Holocaust. So I've seen stuff that's freaking a lot worse than Chainsaw. But I think what Chainsaw does that is really effective is the stuff that you don't see, the psychological stuff. The scene that I thought was the most intense and the most disturbing. Most people would say, you know, it was a death scenes where people get, you know, hit in the head with hammers and stuff. Those are grueling and disturbing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the most, and this is a great scene right here where he gets the knife out and he cuts the Franklin character. A pretty decent effect as well.
Yeah.
But for me, the most disturbing scene in the movie is when they got the lead actress Marilyn Burns. They got her tied to a chair, and we'll get to it later on, and I'll describe some of that really makes it psychologically disturbing. It's just real quick, just the camera work and the overall feel of it. You're watching just an insane scene in that one particular scene.
Yeah.
I think that's like the most disturbing because it's so intense. It just builds up this tension. It does not stop, and it's just great.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you notice this when you watch it, but doesn't it seem, and I believe this is unintentional, but doesn't it seem like the mark that the hitchhiker puts on the van is like, it almost looks like it is a symbol as opposed to like just a smear of blood? Do you ever notice that?
It kind of yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from. It kind of reminds me of an unfinished infinite sign for some reason. Like if you
Yeah.
were right in the middle of drawing an infinite sign, or maybe an 8 or something like that, and it just didn't finish. What it kind
Yeah.
of reminds me of. But yeah, I see what you mean. It does kind of look like he's trying to paint with his blood as sort of his symbol.
Yeah,
And
and apparently that's not like that's not on purpose. But again, this is a movie that just, even in its mistakes, it's perfect, almost like Halloween, in that way. I don't know. I don't know. I like that aspect to it, and I like to sort of consider that part of it. But I think personally, for the most part, I think he's just supposed to be like marking the van to be like, hey, these are people that you could prey upon.
yeah,
Obviously, if you're watching this movie, that you're probably not watching it for the first time, so we're probably going to spoil a lot of stuff along the way. But and by the way, if this is your first time watching the movie and you're watching it with an audio commentary, first off, you are the world's biggest nerd, and you need to get out more. But this is a good movie.
I would say though, if you guys want to, you guys can watch the commentary. But if you haven't seen this movie yet, I would recommend like watching it with no lights on, real late at night, watching it on a very creepy, stormy, rainy night, and you would have a very creepy time with this movie. Or you guys can watch it with the commentary. No problem with that. It's totally fine as well.
Yeah. This dude here, I don't know if they've ever found him, like the guy that plays the little washer dude. I don't know if he's ever been like found as far as like going to a convention or anything, but I think this was probably the one thing that he did.
Hey, can you be in this movie? We needed somebody to play this part. Yeah, I don't have a cast member. Hey, can you come over here and play this part? Sure. All right. I'll get paid for it. All right.
Just some crazy hobo on the street.
Yeah. Hey, you want to be in this movie? We're making a movie. Oh, sure. Okay. Hey, it's wiping left to right, not right to left. You got it wrong. We got to
pay you in weed.
Which I forgot to mention that in the opening scene. That's what Toby Hooper paid the guy who did the opening scene.
Yeah, John Larroquette, who I think right now is like comedian. John Larroquette is.
He might be. I'm not sure. I know he did the remake as well. He did the opening for the remake, which is really cool. He did that.
Yeah.
So what would you say that this movie does better than the remake? I mean, there's obviously a lot of things, but what is one of the strongest things it does that's better than the remake?
Well, I think that this has an innovative visual style. It's guerrilla filmmaking at its best. Everything almost feels documentary to a more cinematic and yet handheld degree. I think this movie has really good editing as well, whereas I think the remake had just your typical slapdash editing that they're going to use. The remake, I'm going to give it this much, actually had better actors. I mean, they had Arlie Ermy, who is great in his role. Jessica Biel is good. Stuff like that. They had better caliber actors, but these actors felt more real. You get more of a performance out of the people from the remake, whereas these people just sort of seem like they're people who happened to be caught on camera. I also think that the fact that they were in such a perilous situation, even making the movie, they were constantly almost on the run for the law. When it was financed by the mob, basically. Most of these people got paid in either weed or some crappy little, like, probably not even scale pension, not pension, but a salary. And you've got really memorable characters in here as well. I also think that the fact that there's sort of this cosmic quality to the movie that's written in the script is really good. All the dialogue feels just sort of, thrown off hand. It doesn't seem written. It seems as if it was just spoken.
Mhm.
And I also
Very
think that,
natural deliveries.
yeah, and I think that this movie, I said this already, but it's a sign of the times, because violence and protest was going on in the 1970s. The 1970s was an era dominated by protest, violence, and division, much like, you may even see today. Whereas in 2003, the worst thing you could do was think about 9/11 a couple years before. But really, this was a much more turbulent time, which I think affected the movie. And I think overall, Toby Hooper is just a much better director than whoever it was, the Texas Chainsaw remake.
I believe it was Marcus. Well, at least Marcus Nispel did the directing. I'm not sure if he did the writing, but I know he did the directing.
But I
And
think
actually,
Toby Hooper,
the same cinematographer came back as well for the remake. But I feel he did he did a decent job in that movie. But this one has just some extremely memorable shots that just really match the movie, and they're really good. I mean, the remake does have some decent shots, but this one just has some really classic wide shots. I think what this movie does really great is the wide shots, the long shots, the lasting, lingering shots that are just really good.
And the thing is that this movie, I think, makes daytime scary.
Yes,
like, the nighttime
absolutely.
scenes are scary too, but the daytime is scary as well. And despite the fact that there is a good amount of the Texas Chainsaw remake that takes place during the day, I definitely think that it doesn't do quite as good a job as making the daytime scary. Plus, this movie, honestly, it just feels dirty, and it feels wrong, and it feels like it gives you this feeling that makes you just want to go take a shower after you watch it. And there are very few films that did that, but I don't know.
And there's the painted sign that you was talking about, because if you look real close, it does look like either an infinite symbol or maybe an 8 symbol or maybe the number 8, but like it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
And then right here, get the serious zoom in on Franklin.
Yeah.
He's concerned.
Yeah. I think.
Worry about his knife now.
I think a piece of meat that he's eating, does it not look like a penis?
Actually, when I watched this with my dad, actually, I was like, "Hey, I found this movie. It was really great, and it's a great horror movie." And he watched it, and he thought it was a good movie as well. He's like, "You know what that guy looks like? He's chewing on." I'm like, "Well, he looks like he's chewing on a dang penis." I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah, it does. And I kind of like to think that maybe it is, because
Because
that's their barbecue.
Because of the and it could be that, it could be a toe, it could be a thumb or anything like that, and he just doesn't know it yet. Maybe it's a hard shell peppercorn, which is a reference to another sequel.
Yeah. And here's another thing that Texas Chainsaw Massacre does well. There is no good reason that they should have shown those spiders up in that corner. And a little bit later, there's a shot of this tree that has all these weird little symbols and trinkets on it, and one of them is that's definitely focused on is I think it's
A watch, like a nail through
pocket
it.
watch with a nail through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no reason they should have shown that. Like, there's no reason at all. They just did, and somehow it helped the movie to have like an extra little weird little layer there, which is
He said, "I'm getting this out of my mouth."
Oh my gosh, I'm getting this little penis out of my mouth. I'm busy. This is the most hilarious scene in the entire movie.
Yeah, where he's yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Franklin, it's gonna be a fun trip. I love the whining scenes, like from Franklin. They're just so hilarious. Like, they're so funny.
And apparently he acted like that in real life. Like, he stayed in character the entire movie.
Yeah, because I think the interview I seen, he said he did not want to lose the character. He wanted to keep the character, so he wanted to make sure he was the character as much as possible, so he didn't lose it. And I think it was just with the Texas Massacre. I think it's just a very practical horror film. You know, you think about it, it has a real house with real skeletons in it, with real, taxidermies with text. It's gonna be a fun trip.
He does this like 20 times.
And he runs into the door.
I don't think I won't way I don't take it.
Watch, he runs into the door. Oh, this is fun.
This is just, I don't know. Like, it almost sticks out like a sore thumb because it doesn't seem like it should be there, but it works.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean, it's one of those practical horror films. I mean, they really went out and there were skeletons in the movie. There's animal bones, taxidermy, actual, clothes they had to wear for a long time. Like, at the end of the movie, which is probably some of the most grueling filmmaking I've heard of, where I think it was like a 38-hour shoot in one room with intense heat. Like, it was hotter inside the house than it was on the actual outside. And they shot it for 36 hours, nonstop screaming, everybody being in one room. They actually said it was so hot that it was cooking the food on the table. The food was cooking. That's how hot it was.
And it was
I just can't believe it. It was rotting. It was stinking. And right here, you got some really great practical bones. That I remember when I first seen it, I'm like, wow, it's so simple but effective. As it really is effective. It's definitely a creepy shot where he looks up, and right there, some bones.
And you know what I just noticed with those bones there? You look at sort of the way that it's placed, and it almost looks like a person hanging, like if they were just hanged. I don't know. Weird. But there's so many little things to this movie that you notice every time you watch it. It's a movie that doesn't get old because there's continuous new stuff that you just
so much detail to it that you can't just capture it all in one watch. You have to keep watching. Like, oh yeah, I noticed that in the background. Oh wow, what a great set piece, or just some amazing imagination put into this movie, especially when it comes to the actual house. Like, the animal hides on the walls and the bones everywhere, which we'll get to in a second. But just so much imagination put into it. I love this shot right here as well. This is just like these shots where you see the open, wide shots of Texas is where you can really feel the atmosphere. You feel the heat. You feel just the dryness. And right here's the shot you're talking about, the watch.
Yeah. Again,
which
no reason they should have shown this.
Yeah, kind of like a twisted Christmas tree sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a really, really twisted and messed up design, or a really twisted decorations.
Yeah.
And then we got sunflowers. The sunflowers surrounding one of the most horrifying places in the world. We got a bunch of sunflowers.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't notice that before, that they had sunflowers, which is like, I don't know. That's almost juxtaposition, like the evil along with the beauty and stuff like that. But I
Mm.
guess, to Leatherface and his family, like, this stuff is just, it's decoration, it's beautiful and stuff like that. So maybe they like sunflowers, as much as they like timepieces with nails driven through them.
And so what would you say though? Like for me personally, I think that the Texas Massacre franchise, the franchise itself is a bit underrated. I think it's one of the more, for me, it's one of the more unique ones because usually with the franchise, you might have a remake and a prequel in there, but most of the sequels follow each other. In the Texas Massacre, the way I view it is you sort of get these different universes of sequels, of what it would be in this universe and what it would be in this universe, because the sequels don't really follow each other. They're sort of like, okay, this one's a sequel to the first movie,
Hmm.
and then the next sequel would be a direct sequel to the first movie. So they don't really follow each other. But for me, it's really cool. I don't know. To most people, the franchise is kind of a mess, but for me, it's like one of the things that makes it different and unique, and that's why I love the franchise in general because it's just a really unique franchise where most of the sequels are direct sequels to the first, even to the newest movie that just came out. Well, it didn't just come out, but it came out in 2013. That was a direct sequel to the first movie.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you say about that? The fact that the franchise doesn't really follow itself, it just sort of keeps repeating, doing new sequels and doing new sequels directly to the first movie.
Well, first off, I do want to say that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I think, is one of the most underrated uh, horror movie sequels that there ever
Absolutely.
was. A lot of people just don't give that movie the credit that it deserves, um,
Absolutely.
for being really well made. And
Different. Different
it's
from the
not
original.
like the first movie. It's not like the first movie at all. It's a radically different movie, but it's hilarious, and it's got its like sort of touching deep scenes and stuff like that. And we talked a little bit about this when we did our Texas Chainsaw Massacre commentary, I'm sure, but I mean, part two commentary. But um, that's a really underrated, fun 80s horror movie that stands on its own apart from the original, I think, as being a pretty good movie. Talking for a while just to be like admiring this scene, then I'll get back to the franchise. But there's like, all right, on my subtitles it says like sound of pig squealing, and I guess that is what it sounds like, but I think that's Leatherface, don't you?
Yeah, I always thought that was maybe he used that as a distraction. I remember when I first seen this movie, this scene right here, I literally was sitting silent. I could not believe what I just witnessed because it was so realistic the way that it was done. And what I was thinking, because most horror movies now they do this slow build up and then a jump scare. What happens in this movie is it's okay. Here's a noise. You would expect him to just go back there and maybe investigate a little bit. No, he goes to go back there and boom, and then pull in, and then the door closes. But I think he would use the squealing as this is another great shot right here, which actually I think they had to reshoot. They went back and they got this shot. It was like, I want to get this shot. They actually had no money to get this shot, but he said, you know what, I want this shot in the movie, and they did it. They had no money
Yeah,
to do it, but they did it.
yeah,
But
and it's a
I think
great
he does
shot
it to lure
also.
his victims back to wherever he needs to go. He sort of makes some noises and stuff to lure his victim, because actually you hear that noise throughout the movie, but it's not as obvious as it is there, but you can kind of hear it in the background a little bit, pig squeals and stuff.
Yeah, and the thing I think that's interesting, just a little bit about that shot, is like the fact that it blows up the house. The house looks so much bigger. Apparently, the house isn't that big in person, but it's like it makes it look so big. It's like this imposing, just um, well of and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and all this great design that we're about to see here in a moment. Look, the great
This is like
production
one of my
design.
Definitely one of my favorite horror scenes of all time is this scene right here, because when I first seen this movie, I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm seeing chickens in cages hanging from strings. I'm
Yeah,
singing skulls with horns through the mouth. I was like, oh my god, what am I
yeah.
watching?
This is just, it's so surreal. It's shot like it's a David Lynch movie before David Lynch made a single movie. Um, or it's made like a Louis Buñuel movie. Um, but it's held together a little bit better as far as the plot's concerned. And look at that. Like, there's
Great
no
design right
reason
there.
that should be there. That's just disturbing. This is of disturbing shots mixed in virtually random order. Freak you out and to show how freaked out she is. And yeah, I guess I forgot about that. Everything's covered in chicken feathers. There's this broken turtle shell. Oh man, this
It's
is
just great,
so
great stuff.
like this. These are the scenes that make me want to like stop the movie and go take a shower, because you can just I've been around chickens. Chickens are nasty. They're horrible. They smell bad. I'm just right now I'm thinking it just smells like chicken feces and feathers and dust and
Yeah, I've been around my fair share of chickens as well, and
yeah,
pretty rough,
and
pretty
rotting
stinky.
meat. That's what I'm imagining, and she's puking, so that's adding to it. And it looks like she's sweating. Oh my gosh.
It's just a grueling, disgusting, without any gore, disgusting scene.
Yeah,
Really
exactly.
gritty. And boom, right here, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Just the attack is brutal, and you actually just see he just picks her up, and she's struggling with everything she has, but it's not enough to get away.
yeah.
And
Rest
then
in
Gunnar Hansen,
rest in peace to Gunnar Hansen.
yeah, did a great job. And from what I've heard in the trailer on the features, um, Gunnar Hansen was a very gentle person. He was behind the scenes. He didn't like doing this stuff, and he would even ask the actors if ouch. He would ask the actors if they were okay after the shot, and that's just really cool.
Yeah. Um Apparently he was the nicest guy on set because Toby Hooper was just relentless. Like, and I can understand why he'd be relentless. I mean, it's a relentless movie, but
Mm-hmm.
he seems to have been like the only really positive influence about this movie. Um, and by the way, there's a great like B movie called Mosquito from 1995 that he's in. Gunnar Hansen, that is, and um, he picks up a chainsaw at one point and he says, "Oh, I haven't held one of these in 20 years. Feels nice," and proceeds to cut up these giant
Awesome.
mosquitoes that are attacking him. It's awesome.
That's totally cool. And
But
now it kind of looks like an 18, like an
yeah, I don't
18.
know. Like it almost looks
Kind of
like it.
changed.
Yeah. Um, I guess we can get back to the me talking about the franchise. And I agree with you. It's almost like, so the second one's supposed to follow the first one, but then the third one, basically, second one didn't exist, and it's the one that follows the first one. And then the fourth one, which I haven't seen and don't own, is also supposed to be a direct sequel, right?
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's let me tell you right now, it's pretty much like uh, take a remake and change a few things, make it less violent and bloody, and make it extremely lame. That's what Chainsaw 4 is.
I
that's
can't
that's
wait.
Chainsaw 4.
I can't wait to see it. Um, and and then the remake obviously is a remake, and then the remake has no sequel, but it has a prequel. And
Mm-hmm.
then they scrap that idea and then make another sequel to the first movie. So ostensibly, the first movie has 4 possible existing sequels, um, that you could ignore any of them and just get it to follow the first one. I think the reason that they did that is that they didn't know how to follow the first movie. And the second movie was not received well when
It's
it
a
came
shame.
out, which is dumb because I thought it was I've always thought it was an awesome movie ever
Yeah.
since I watched it for the first
It
time.
was the very first Chainsaw movie I'd seen. I seen that, and then believe it or not, actually I had seen Evil Dead right after that, and it was just that was the first time I had seen Chainsaw 2, and it was the first one I had seen, and then I had seen Evil Dead, both really gory films. So it was like a two film that just hit me with this gore, and I was like, oh, awesome! But at the same time, it was very gory stuff. But it was
Yeah,
great.
and
Watch
both
new
of those by
movies.
the oh wait, never mind. But anyway, yeah, the second one was not received well, so they were like, okay, well, let's just sort of scrap that, and we'll make another sequel, and maybe this one will be better. And then again, it wasn't received well, and so they did the same thing with the next generation, and again, it wasn't received well. And then they were
They
like,
don't
well,
understand.
well,
They don't understand. They don't learn from their mistakes. It's not going to work. I mean, if it's not being received, it's not going to get received.
and it got worse as it went down the line because the second one is like a legitimately good movie, and then the third one's a pretty good, fun little sequel. And
Yeah,
then the fourth movie is like abysmal as far as what I've heard.
horrible, horrible.
Um, and then the remake is like, okay, let's try to go back to basics, but sort of updated a little bit. And they failed again, but it
It was a
was,
it was a good remake. It was decent. Wasn't the greatest, but it was decent
yeah, and it
for
made
me
a
at
lot of
least.
money. It did make a lot of money. Um,
So now to get a prequel, which I think is also a fun prequel.
yeah,
As far as
yeah.
prequels go,
I
because
mean, I think
prequels
both
for
of
me,
them
then I don't know.
are fine
I
movies.
mean, for me, prequels, they're decent, but there's not really a great prequel that I love. It's just like Exorcist is decent. Exorcist 4. Chainsaw, the beginning is, pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's my favorite prequel, I would say.
Yeah. And I don't understand because I think the prequel made money too. I have no idea why they sort of scrapped the idea to like continue down the line of like, okay, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, let's do a sequel to it. Decided, okay, let's try and do another sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw and try and take it back to its roots. And I like Texas Chainsaw 3D. I think it's fun. It's a
Yeah,
stupid
same here. It's
it's a
okay. It's pretty
stupid
good.
slasher movie. It's just a regular stupid slasher movie, but I think it's really
It's
fun.
okay. Yeah,
Um,
I thought it was. I don't think it's like extremely underrated. I can kind of see where people are coming from. It does have problems, but for me, I think it's an okay new approach. I think what really got me with it is it's a new approach. It was a new idea, and I can appreciate that.
hmm And I liked that movie, but again, it didn't do very well. I mean, it made a little bit of money. You know, it made back its budget and probably doubled doubled its budget, um, but I don't know. Again, they don't know how to follow the first movie, and they've never gotten past that. I think is never like out of it. Plus, I don't really know if this movie is an idea for like a franchise. It's more like
Mm.
a one-off movie anyway.
Boom!
Oh yeah,
Great, great stuff.
yeah.
This
But
classic scene
again,
as well.
I do think that the re not the remake, but the I do think that the franchise is a little bit underrated. Like I wouldn't rank it among my favorites, but this is 10 times the franchise that something like Children of the Corn or Hellraiser or um, God forbid Puppet Master is. Um, and this is better than a lot of franchises actually. Like I think at the very least the first, second, third and seventh movie in the franchise are all um, at least things that you can revisit and have fun with.
Yeah,
And of
and I
course
think
the
this is
original, and of course the original is a masterpiece. So
I think it's like it's just yeah. I mean, the franchise is definitely different. It's definitely unique. And that's just what drew me into the franchise. And when I first got on YouTube, which is a long time ago, which is almost 4 years ago, I cannot believe it. But when I first came on, I think my first thing, and now that if I would think about it, just real quick, if I think about that was just an awful review. But I remember when I first came to YouTube, the reason why I was just so because when I first joined, my logos and everything were Chainsaw, Texas Chainsaw, and it just was a movie at the time, and it still is a movie that I just really looked up to as a horror film because it was the most different franchise. It was the most gritty, raw first movie. Like the first movie is my favorite, without a doubt. Was my favorite. It's my favorite horror film of all time. But the second movie is great. It's fun. The third movie is fun. I think it's really underrated. I think what really sucks about it is that they could get the unrated the footage back, but it's just been so destroyed that they can't restore it. It's been such. It's. I mean, they probably could get it back. It's being bad quality, but it's been destroyed so badly. But yeah, it was just a franchise I really got attached to. It was just unique, very unique. I'll say that's very unique.
Yeah, it is a unique franchise in that sort of like, again, like they try it over and over and over again and never really succeeded, but they did make a few really good movies out of it. Like the first one, again, masterpiece. Second one, a minor classic at the very least, I think. Then the third one is, just a good 90s horror movie. And, the rest are sort of, how they are. But I don't know. It's a fun, interesting franchise to revisit. I think it'd be a really hard franchise to watch all in one day because I feel like it would
It'd be so
feel
hard to
really,
follow the story because the
yeah,
story doesn't really have a continuation after part two. Because after part two, three, and four are direct sequels, and then the remake, and then the prequel, and then other direct sequels. So the storyline doesn't really go anywhere, and I understand that, but just to see that, for me, what's cool about the sequels is just to see what it would look like okay, this is what this one would look like. This is what this one would look like different direct sequels and different ideas and
yeah,
different approaches. Interesting.
yeah,
Except for part four. Part four was a sequel that even when I was going to go in to watch it, I was like, okay, the movie gets a 2 out of 10 on IMDb. I got to brace myself. And
yep,
it's pretty bad. It's
yeah,
pretty bad. As a Chainsaw fan, I watched it at the worst time because that was a time I still am into it. Like it's still my favorite horror film of all time. But I was watching the sequels in the first movie a lot, so I loved them. And then I seen four. I was just like going into it like, all right, continuing the franchise. And then that smile that you guys are seeing, it went away as I was watching the movie. It went away into a angry, just sad feeling. I was just watching it, and I was sad as a Chainsaw fan. I was like, no, what did they do? What did they do?
yeah. Oh man, but all right, now these as much as scary as even like the daytime stuff is, the nighttime stuff is
Really creepy.
horrifying. This is
Yeah.
like this scene actually right now was like what cemented this movie as, to me, like what I would consider to be one of the most horrifying movie viewing experiences that I ever had. Now, keep in mind, I'm watching this on a cell phone, low quality video. Um, my room is dark. There's people home, but they're all outside and they're all away from me. Um, and I live out in the country. I'm not really afraid of the woods or anything, you know. I grew up respecting the woods, but this made me afraid. This is this scene really cemented it, and then everything afterward, it just goes back crap crazy after that.
I think like it's just I know that when you look at the lighting would probably not be the best in this, but I think it works, especially in this movie and another movie called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I think that the reason the dimming of the lighting really helps it. Really helps it. This and The Hills of Eyes as well. the lighting might not be the best lighting, but especially in these scenes, but I think it really helps it because it's so dark and boom, right here, this is such a creepy part that when I was watching it, it was definitely a very effective jump scare. And it's
Oh yeah.
just such a creepy image.
I was I
Imagine
was
being in a wheelchair and you're not able to move, and this guy just pops up with a chainsaw wearing someone's face and starts chainsawing, like, or even from her point of view, it'd be horrifying. And you're running in the woods
yeah.
at night. You don't know where to go. You're in the middle of the woods. It's dark. You can't see where you're running. Branches are hitting you. It just would be a terrifying experience. And it doesn't matter which person it is. If you put yourself in that position, you would probably be having the most horrifying experience of your life.
Yeah. No matter who you are. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know. This is, and I feel like in real life, this was a horrifying moment for her because
Mm.
he's got a live chainsaw. That's a real chainsaw he's holding. It's actually running. It doesn't have the regular chain on it, it's got a rubber chain, but still, it's a real chainsaw. He can barely see out of the mask. It's dark. She doesn't know where he's coming from. She's running through these woods, literally tearing herself to pieces on all of these like limbs and barbs and stuff like that. Apparently, all the blood that you see on her outfit is her real blood
Oh
from
wow.
getting scraped. Um,
Yeah, I heard it's not. Yeah, I heard the same thing. I heard it's not makeup. It's not special effects. It's actually just it's real. It's real deal.
and this is such a stressful scene to watch. Like, I'm watching it without sound. It's not quite as effective. I think the sound design on this movie is beautifully
Oh yeah,
effective.
we forgot to mention that the sound is fantastic. It's great.
Yeah. But
Especially, it's not really the score. It's really, I don't know, what would you call it? Would it be a score? Would it be music, or would it be like just sound effects?
it's like, so it is music to a certain degree, but it's the most alternative version of music I've ever heard in my life because it's
Yeah.
like um Tom Waits would sort of do basically what this music is a few years later and add lyrics to it on his album Swordfish Trombones, um, which is sort of a seminal album for like legitimately alternative music. Um, but that's sort of what this is, and it's all atonal. There's no tuning required. It almost is sound effects, but it's set almost as if it is music. So I call it music. Um, but I also think that like the sound design, the way that they recorded the sound was just creepy too. I don't know. There's something about the sound to this movie that makes it so much more powerful. This is a movie that's totally an assault on the senses because the visuals are extreme, so is the sound. Uh, the writing is just so bare bones and realistic. The acting is naturalistic. I don't know. All of that just
Yeah.
makes this movie into something that it has no right being as good as it is. You know?
I mean, it was just a film that, and I like how, I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but look right there again. If you've seen that, the door, I like that, how the door was cut. But if you look at it when Leatherface runs past it, it's spray paint. It's great. It's a great little blooper, but it's so fun to see that go from a cut to spray paint. I was like, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a very it was a production, like I said, and also I heard this chase scene was like one of the longest chase scenes out there. Or for me personally, I think it'd be like one of the longer chase scenes I've seen in a horror film because it's unrelenting. You know, she thinks she gets to a house and it's not safe. It's not. It's probably the least safe place she could go.
Yeah.
And she gets out of there, runs more, goes right back into the woods, and is running for eternity once again. until she gets to her next location, and an endless, and even these shots right here sort of show it, this endless chase through darkness from this opposing being. And even when she falls, it's like it's just you're it's just you can just see how it's like a never-ending chase, and she has to get out of there.
Yeah.
But it was just a very rough production. I think it helped it, honestly. The crazy backstories behind this movie, I think it really helped it. The rough shooting, the rough production, I think it really helped it. It made it gritty, it made it realistic, and it made it raw.
Yeah, definitely. There's something about this movie, and it's almost even hard to tack down because there's a lot of stuff that you could say about it, and we have said about it, but there's still something that we're missing that I don't think anybody can put down to like why it's as crazy and effective as it is. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I,
And
I
now
think
we've
it's
got
that, and also just a mixture of different things, like you said. I love this scene right here. I love the reaction. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!"
yeah. Oh man, it's so sad that Jim Seadow's no longer with us
Yeah,
because I feel like he would have been just the nicest person to have met.
yeah. I've seen the interviews, and he's pretty cool. He also did a great job in
Yeah,
Chainsaw 2. So yeah, rest in peace, Jim Seadow. Rest in peace, Marilyn Burns,
yeah,
Gunnar Hansen, Paul Bartain, the production designer. They all did a great job, and they are missed. This is a great movie.
yeah. I hear that Jim Seadow would like whisper dirty jokes to a lot of the female actors, like old timey dirty jokes too, that used words like trollop and stuff like that. I, I don't know if that's true, but
I think you can visit most of these locations. Like I heard you can visit this gas station. I
mm,
heard you can visit the graveyard. You can actually go to the house, and you can actually have a meal there. You can eat in the chainsaw house. You can have a meal there,
yeah, and
which is
they don't advertise that it's that house
yeah.
because I think they still want like old people to come there, but they also I don't know the fact that it's the chainsaw house is a little awesome.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, you see that door over there? Oh yeah, that's where someone got their head bashed in with a hammer. Oh my god! And over there, it's where someone got chainsawed. No big deal. What
Yeah,
what what kind of a restaurant is this? No, it's an awesome place. It would, if for me, if I ever took a trip to Texas, I would love to revisit these sites, and I would love to go to that restaurant and sit down and have a meal right where they were eating human beings at. But just to have a little steak or something right next to where they were eating people at. No, it'd just be a fun time to go there as a fan.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I heard the owner of that restaurant is actually running a fan page, I believe, on the
Oh,
internet, which is
that's
really
pretty cool.
interesting. Yeah. I've seen most of the features on the DVDs and stuff, and a lot of interesting. Like this is like one of those horror films with a lot of interesting stuff to it because it was such a crazy shoot that there was just so much stuff to talk about, and it was great. And apparently, this scene right here was real. I mean, this is a
Yeah,
real broom handle, and it really breaks, and it was a real deal thing, raw and rough.
I can't
Which,
help it. Like for some reason, I laugh at this because he's hitting her with a broom,
yeah, he could have grabbed anything
and
else, but he grabs a broom.
as much as it, I'm sure it hurt, and like as sure as heck, it was probably awful to have to experience this. It makes me laugh immediately, like the first time that he goes like, every time I see it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and I'm not sure, was that knife real, or was it? It kind of feels like it's real, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's a real knife or not.
it looks like he was like,
Just something that sort of bugged me through the movie. Like, is that a real knife? But it's kind of flimsy. I'm not sure.
I think it's a bread knife. I think it's a bread knife, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's something that sort of bugged me. I was like, is it real, or is it a plastic, or? And that was real too. They really grabbed
Hmm.
that from the floor, and they really had to use that. I mean, this
Yeah,
was just a tough film to shoot, but it had to be done. I mean, it had to make, and it worked. I mean, really, it was gruesome, but when you look at it, it works. It really is effective. You really feel sorry for this character.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine at the time what people were thinking as they were watching this movie. Like, seeing everything that has just happened so far, like, I
Hmm.
just can't imagine the impact and how much controversy this movie caused. I mean, just culturally and just on society in general, how much of an impact it had.
Yeah. Well, you got to think about this. Like, this was probably originally shown mostly at drive-ins.
Hmm.
It was probably shown a few times in the theaters as well, but I would say that probably drive-ins were the big thing that sort of made this movie its money. And by the way, we don't know how much money this movie actually made because it all went to the mob.
Yeah,
Um,
Bryanston, I think
yeah,
Bryanston
production.
Pictures.
Yeah, Bryanston Pictures. That's right. Um, and so you gotta think. So this is mostly a drive-in movie. And who goes to drive-ins? Mostly teenagers who want to hook up with one another, right? In their cars, they want to make out, they want to have some
Have a couple
stupid movie.
screens.
Yeah, some stupid movie uh playing in the background and um and just make out. But I gotta imagine that there were a bunch of like women and men who were sitting there in their cars trying to make out and just being unable to do so because
Yeah,
of this movie and just like staring and getting freaked out and more freaked out and more freaked out. And the same thing with like, 74, which is when this was made, right? So like that's almost at the end of the hippie era. So I can imagine hippies saw this and doing acid and smoking pot
yeah.
and stuff,
Whoa,
and
dude,
and
that
they
has a chainsaw.
and they just probably freaked out. It probably scared them half to death. Their poor little liberal hippie hearts. But um, I don't know. I think that probably this had so much of an impact. And back then, one of the impacts that it had for sure was actually on one of the greatest bands of all time, the Ramones. The Ramones went to see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre like right as they were putting together their band, and they wrote a song about it. So
Oh, I gotta check that out. I haven't heard that song yet.
yeah, it's called Chainsaw by the Ramones. It's a silly little song, and it almost sounds like it just sounds silly, but it's based on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they loved horror movies. The Ramones did, and they loved cult movies, especially the guitarist Johnny. His favorite movie ever was The Bride of Frankenstein.
So, what do you think about the as far as, because we're gonna go overseas real quick. When the United States this movie shown, controversy was around it, but I don't think we really got the full impact of it until we're talking about the UK and what happened in the United Kingdom when this movie came out. Of
Yeah,
course, this was put on the video nasties list, and it was, of course, I think it wasn't it banned? I think it was banned in the UK. There were copies
it was
being
made in the
burned. Yeah, there was copies being burned out in streets, or I think out in the streets. I'm not sure, but they were burned. A lot of stuff going on.
Well, what you have to remember is it wasn't just the UK. Like the United States was okay with this film. Obviously, there were a lot of people who were upset by it, both conservative and liberal, on both sides of the aisle. But in the United States, of course, we're able to show basically whatever we want within certain parameters. Um,
Mm.
in other countries, they don't have that same liberty, especially in Europe. Europe is very squeamish about violence. Um,
Yeah, like Europe and UK and just overseas. Like, how do you think they received the movie? Like, I know in the UK it was banned, but like,
well,
what about like Europe and stuff like that?
in the UK it was banned, and for that reason, I think it became more popular. I know also in the UK, The Exorcist was banned, and There were even like a few little bootleg copies that got through of The Exorcist, and I would be hard pressed to imagine that this didn't come through in some form, even if it was on bootlegged, for like $10 at like some little pawn shop or something. But for the most part, I think this movie's legend grew for people in the UK because they were unable to watch it. And when they finally were able to watch it, I think that added sort of more gravitas to the movie itself. And of course, this was also banned in Germany for a number of years. I think it was only recently, like in like 1990, was released in like well, actually in the mid 90s, I think, was released in like Austria and Australia, and I think even like most recently there were like, I think there was an Asian nation that wouldn't allow it to be shown until I think even the year 2000. And I think that, I don't know, the impact that this movie had, I think, on that audience was that there's something that we're not getting. And so I think, affected the fact that they were wanting to be able to have more free expression and free reign to, buy what they wanted and make the movies they wanted. I think this movie has a little bit of an impact as far as that's concerned. And I mean, you can say the same thing about the Italian giallo and zombie flicks that came out in the 70s and 80s that were also banned as part of the video nasties, and stuff like The Burning, and all these movies like that that were banned not only in the UK but tons of European nations. I think
like
that
worldwide.
more than anything, yeah, and worldwide, more than anything, I think it shows a shining example of how great America is, that we're allowed to have all this stuff and they're not. But also the fact that, they were able to grow the popularity of these movies without them ever being shown. I don't know. I think that's just an interesting phenomenon. Yeah. And
As you
it's
can
also
see,
interesting to note. Go ahead.
all right. As you can see, Leatherface has a new getup. So I know people are like, "Well, how do you hate Chainsaw 4? In this movie, he just looked like an old grandma sort of thing." It's seriously, honestly, in this movie is creepy. It really is creepy. And 4, it's not creepy.
Yeah. You
It really
remember,
is. And
like,
this movie adds a creepiness to it. It really does.
yeah, one of the most memorable images I remember is like here in just a few minutes, probably like 2 minutes or something. Leatherface is going to like reach toward Marilyn Burns' character, and just gonna reach toward her to like touch her face and stuff, and that image just freaks me out. Still to this day, it's just a weird, freaky little scene.
I found this scene right here to be kind of disturbing and squeamish. Like, I got kind of squeamish watching this because it's such a gross idea to have someone cut this woman's finger and having the old man character, Grandpa, sucking the blood out of her finger. It's such a detailed scene. And I remember watching this, and actually, that looks like a real cut. If it's an effect, then that's if it's an effect, then it looks amazing. But it really looked like it was a practical cut. But I'm sure it was a special effect.
I think actually it was a real cut. It was a real cut because they I think it was that Gunnar Hansen was like, okay, she's been through enough, we've been through enough. I'm just gonna cut her finger. Okay, and there's also a funny story in the midst of this horrifying scene. There's a funny story that John Dugan tells. Of course, John Dugan played Grandpa. He tells a story that he got aroused when he was sucking on her finger because he thought it was kind of sensual. Like, he said, well, I was a young man and she was a pretty young woman, so I got a little bit aroused. Apparently this is on apparently this is on the commentary for Texas Chainsaw 3D that he's on, and so is Gunnar Hansen and Ed Neal. Apparently Ed Neal, like Michael Felcher, who was producing it, was like, "Oh, nobody's gonna remember that story. It's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be all right." And then Ed Neal asked him the same morning, "Hey, what about that John Dugan boner story?"
That's funny.
Yeah.
I wonder, is that on the DVD of Chainsaw 3D?
Yeah, that's a really good DVD, by the way. It's got a really big group of like extras on it. That again,
I gotta check that out.
like it's it has no reason that it should have that many awesome special features, but it does.
True, yeah. This is, like I said earlier, this is just my favorite, probably my favorite scene in the movie. And it was just, this is the 36-hour scene right here.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, most of this acting is for real. They were really putting it all out there. As you guys can see, just the detail, the surfboard table, and the chicken head, and the head, the lampshade face, and it's just so many crazy ideas put there. It's an unbelievable scene. And I remember when I first seen this movie, watching this scene was literally probably the most disturbing scene I had seen up to that point, because it's just such an unrelenting scene. She can't get out. She's tied to these arms on the chair, and these people are torturing her and making fun of her. And then, as you guys can see, this shot I love is when it zooms in on her eyes and she's freaking out, and the sound effects are playing, and the music's cranked up, and it's just, you're seeing this woman going crazy, and she cannot believe what's happening, and you see it in her eyes, and you just can't believe it.
Yeah.
And right here, they're just humiliating her. They're making fun of her. From what I've heard, this was all shot during the day, but the windows were actually covered over, and it was increasingly hot in the room. And I heard she yelled for 36 hours, yelling and screaming, being in the room for 36 hours. The food was cooking and rotting. And this right here is some good stuff. You're just seeing her. You're seeing her slipping from being sane to insane, sort of.
Yeah. And these shots are just so disturbing, because eventually you were going to cut in and in and in until we see like the whites of her eyes and the bloodshot stuff on her eyes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right there. Some
See,
great disturbing stuff.
I have a thing about eyes, and it just freaks me out to see this so close up. Oh, there's stuff in her eyes.
What did you think about Lucio Fulci Zombie? Lucio
Um,
Fulci Zombie.
See, that's pretty freaky, but to me, this is even worse. I love Zombie because Zombie's got everything like hilarious and 70s, well, early 80s Italian zombie stuff in it. But this is just like, it ramps it up and ramps it up and ramps it up, and then you see that and you're just like, okay, that's the last straw. This is awful. Awfully good. But
and then and like now it's just, and when I first watched this, like I said, I at the time I didn't know she was gonna escape. So you really think she's not gonna make it? I mean, they have her tied up. They're gonna get ready to hit her in the head with this hammer, and they're gonna have it go into this pill, which was also in Chainsaw 2. But it kind of shocked me when I seen 2, because in 2 you think she's gonna make it, but they actually take the hammer and he goes, "Oh, screw it," hits her head. I'm like, oh, they really did hit her head. But that was the first one I'd seen. And this one I thought was gonna do the same thing, but no, she ends up getting free, but barely. She barely gets out of the situation alive.
Yeah, just
barely. I think that's like one of the impacting thing about this movie. Yeah. And it's that she barely gets out alive. And the poster says itself, even if one of them survives, they'll be left. I mean, it really does have that. And I also love the marketing. The marketing's great. Even though the one trailer showed a little bit too much, it showed a lot of the movie. A lot of the stuff that should not have been shown was in the trailer. But you know, it had some decent advertisements. The DVDs are loaded with the trailers and audios of the radio spots and TV spots and stuff. It's really great.
Yeah. Oh man.
Just such intense. And I remember just even watching this now. It's intense, man.
Yeah.
Heart's thumping, heart's going. Because it's physical. It's really physical scene. Um, the hammer ice. Actually, it's very funny because in the commentary that I listened to in this movie, they were saying that the hammer was made out of paper mache. So in the movie, they were going, "Oh yeah, take this." When they would add in sound effects later on, and it would make it sound like it was a real hammer, but in real life, whenever they hit her, it would sound like paper mache. They said it was hilarious in the scene.
Yeah. I think I just realized something. This movie really could not be made today. You know?
Oh, absolutely
And
not.
it's
Absolutely
not,
not.
and it's not just because of like, how it was made and stuff like that. Obviously that couldn't be done today because I mean, I think all of this was done entirely non-union. This was done basically outside of every studio system you could imagine. But not just that. I think that like the violence towards women that's in this movie like would not be acceptable today. Like
Yeah.
no
I
matter
mean, the beatings, the hanging on the meat hook, and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
brutal.
And like I'm not saying that of course like it's a good thing that they have violence towards women, but um I don't know. There's something about today that's just so politically correct that would not allow this type of movie to get through um and onto screens, whether
Yeah.
small screen or silver screen
And
today.
this ending right here is also another uh, really great uh, horror history. This ending right here. That's Look at this shot right here. Just the
Yeah.
slow pan in and that she's getting chased. And it's one of those movies where the ending even doesn't let up. She's still being chased. She can't get away. They're catching up to her. He's cutting her with a knife. It really is nail biting, and it's on
Mhm.
your edge of your seat kind of ending. You don't know if she's gonna make it because she's. I mean, right now she's bleeding. She's cut. She's been beat up and tortured. She's going insane. You have this great scene right here. Love this scene. You finally see the hitchhiker get his own. And boom!
Take that,
Practical
nuns.
effects. And this guy was a big reason why Marilyn Burns lived.
Yeah.
He ran over Ed Neal with a truck, and it's pretty cool because he sort of just pops up and then he runs away and they never see him again.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
another truck sort of pops up and
And you know what's also cool about this ending, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but like this ending is really kind of interesting because like it just ends. Like I feel like the story doesn't end, the movie just ends. You know, because we end with Marilyn Burns got away, but what happens to this family afterwards? Is she too crazy to tell the cops? Um, is like and we see basically Leatherface just celebrating the fact that he's driven this woman crazy.
yeah,
He's dancing with the
it's sort of
chainsaw.
like it's sort of like you've gotten away, but have you really gotten away? Has your mind gotten away?
Yeah.
She's gotten away, but she's probably not gonna be the most sane person after this experience.
Yeah.
This right here, I don't know if it's because the way that's angled, but it sort of looks like he's getting ready to cut her, but he sort of pulled back the chainsaw, and she looks like she's about to get cut. I mean, I don't know. This great scene as well. It might be just the way the scene looks, but it kind of looks like he's getting ready to get her, but then the truck drives off. Very, very intense.
Yeah.
And of course, we end the movie off with this classic Leatherface dance, which has gone on in horror history.
Yeah.
And I like how it shows this and then boom,
Yep.
it's over. And this is probably my most favorite piece of music from the movie would be this music that's playing. Because I remember when I first seen this, I think I sat through the credits because I was so shocked. I was just like processing what I had just witnessed. I was like, what did I just see? Window washer Robert Corton, a bearded man.
Robert Corton, if you're out there, if you're still alive, please contact us. We want to know how you're doing and if you got caught.
But yeah, it's just it's just a fantastic movie. My personal favorite horror film, but also it's just a film that historically, with horror film history, was one of those one of those rare horror films that was a new step up, a new style, a raw, real, impactful film that just came out, and it changed. Well, I don't know if it changed, but it impacted. Without a doubt, it impacted.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a movie that it's gonna be remembered forever. And this isn't a movie that's going to fade off into obscurity. Even in places where it was banned, it was famous. It was infamous, actually. And I don't know. There's something about this movie that's just going to infect us and continue to infect us and affect us until every print of it is gone.
Yep.
Every print, every DVD, every Blu-ray, until it's gone. This movie's gonna be affecting us. We still see shockwaves of it today, I think.
Definitely. But what's so surprised about this film is that it's one of those movies where, because after I watched it, and even now when I watch it, it feels like you just watched a blood fest, a gore fest.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't see any gore. I mean, you've seen blood, and you've seen some blood here and there, but there's really no gore to it. Which is one of those which is because I love seeing gore in horror films, slasher film gore, like Hatchet and stuff like that. It's great, but in this movie, it does good out the gore. It has what it has, and what it has is suspense and pure terror, pure rawness. And I think what also really helps it is that it's an extremely realistic approach, and it's not a far-fetched idea. This is a very realistic idea that, yeah, this is out there. Of the same the features, this is very realistic. This it happened. Not the film, but it was based off of Ed Gein and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a realistic approach to a horror film.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I don't know, it's a great movie. Quentin Tarantino loves this movie, so if Tarantino likes it, you should too. So
Yeah.
uh,
But I don't know, man. You got anything else you want to say about it?
I don't know. I guess a quick rundown of like people who love this movie, who are in the movie business. Ridley Scott says this is his favorite horror movie. Of course, director of Aliens, Prometheus, Gladiator, etc. I believe Martin Scorsese loves this movie. As I said, Tarantino loves it. So does John Carpenter.
Doesn't Bob Shea like the movie as well?
Bob Shea, yeah, because he distributed a little bit of it. He was able to get his hands on a little bit of distributing Texas Chainsaw. Yeah. Guillermo del Toro loves this movie. Peter Jackson loves this movie. Talk loves the movie, but I would imagine that actually he would, because this is probably something that would make him laugh uncontrollably. He was crazy, wonderfully crazy. But yeah, this is and Nate and I love the movie too. And if we love the movie, you should at least give it a try.
Yeah.
Obviously, because you've sat and watched it with us. Um, we appreciate you sitting and watching with us, because this is one of our favorites. Put this at least in my top 20 favorite movies ever, and it's definitely my top 10 horror films. I think it's actually number 6 for me as far as horror movies are concerned.
Yeah. Just thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the commentary. It's a historic horror film. If you haven't seen it and you've watched the commentary, I just really suggest you watch the movie. If you haven't seen it and you're just watching the commentary, I would really recommend that you really see the movie. But it's a historic horror film. It's an impactful time, intense ride, and it's a movie that doesn't age at all. Doesn't age a bit. It looks great on Blu-ray. I recommend the Blu-ray. If you want to pick it up on VHS, I mean that's a great option as well. On DVD, that's a great option as well. Because the VHS would help increase the grittiness, the quality of it would be just gritty and stuff. So if you, I want to see it on VHS. I want to see the original copy on VHS. That'd be great. Just like not like see a VHS version of the Texas Massacre. That'd be great. But yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the commentary. And I don't know. You want to say anything else?
I think I'm finished.
Yeah. Just it's my favorite horror film. One of Steve's favorites as well. And great film. Historical horror film, without a doubt. And rest in peace to all the people involved in the movie that passed away: Paul Partain, Gunnar Hansen, Jim Seedow, Marilyn Burns, the production designer. They all did a great job, and really appreciate the horror film that we did get. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
And yeah, so thanks for watching the commentary, guys, and thank you, Steve, for being in the commentary. It was a great fun time.
No problem at all.
And I will see you guys on the next review. Bye, guys.
Rock on.